Let's eat grandma? Why would you eat your grandma? Is this a horror story? Oh wait, there's a comma. Let's eat grandma. Oh, alright, let's continue. I like cooking my family and my pets. What? What kind of a person cooks his own family and pets? Oh wait, there's a comma. I like cooking my family and my pets. Alright, he's talking about what he likes. Punctuation is important, right? Hello, my name is Maddie from POC English, and in this lesson we're going to talk about punctuation. What is punctuation? Punctuation is the use of full stop or period, question mark, exclamation mark, colon, semicolon, comma, and quotation mark. Before we start learning about when to use each of these, look at this sentence. The thief said the judge needs to be punished. Does this sentence make sense? How can the thief say that the judge needs to be punished? It should be the other way around. The judge should say that the thief needs to be punished, right? But now, let's try to get the meaning out of this sentence by using punctuation. How can we do that? Let's try something. Let's use quotation mark before and after the thief. Next, we have said the judge. Let's use a comma before and after this. So, the thief said the judge. Now again, let's use quotation mark for the rest of the sentence. The thief, said the judge, needs to be punished. In this way, the sentence means that the judge has said that the thief needs to be punished, and it makes perfect sense. So, as you can see, by using punctuation in the right way, we can change and affect the meaning of a sentence. And now, let's begin talking about punctuation. First, let's talk about period, question mark, and exclamation mark. When do we use these? We use these three to finish the sentence. And the sentence which begins after these would start with a capital letter. Look at these sentences, for example. I opened my notebook. It was empty. As you can see, the period has finished one sentence, and the second sentence starts with a capital letter. Why are you always late? What's wrong with you? Why are you always late? What's wrong with you? So you see, question mark is used here to mark the end of a question. The second part of the sentence, which is again another question, begins with a capital letter. Or look at this one. I need juice. People need juice.
I need juice. People need juice.
As you can see, exclamation mark is used to mark the end of a sentence, and the second sentence begins with a capital letter. We all know that we use period or full stop to end a sentence, right? But there are also other uses of the full stop. We normally use full stop after abbreviations, which are short forms. For example, MR, which stands for master, MRS standing for Mrs., and MS, which stands for Ms. Other titles include doctor, DR, or professor, PROF. If you are talking about many things, at the end of the sentence you can use ETC, which means etc. This is an abbreviation, so we use a full stop or period. Also, for academic degrees such as BA, which is the bachelor's degree, MA, which stands for the master's degree, and PhD, which is Doctor of Philosophy. You're also familiar with AM and PM, right? 5 a.m., 6 p.m. And when you are writing someone's full name, and you don't want to write their complete middle name and you want to write the first letter only, we usually use period. For example, Chandler M. Bing. So these are the different uses of full stop. Now let's talk about another punctuation mark, colon. A colon is basically a full stop on top of another full stop. But when do we use a colon? One of the uses of colon is to give explanation or extra information or extra detail about something. For example, There was only one reason for his bad temper: being extremely exhausted. What was the reason for his bad temper? Being extremely exhausted. This is extra information. This is explanation. So we use Colin. Or look at this one. There was a problem with the car. It was leaking petrol. Now you see, what was the problem of the car? I want to provide more explanation, so I use Colin. There was a problem with the car, Colin. It was leaking petrol. Another use of Colin is when we are providing a list. For example, look at this. These are what we need to do. Colin. Number 1, comma. Number 2, comma. Number 3, comma. Or look at this example. Make sure you buy these: apples, oranges, and tomatoes. So we use Colin to indicate that we are going to provide a list. And another use of Colin is when we are quoting other people. For example, the boy said, "I need to leave as soon as possible." The boy said, Colin, quotation mark, "I need to leave as soon as possible." End quote. So when we are quoting something, when we are saying what other people told us, we use quotation mark. But before that, we use Colin to indicate that we are going to talk about a quotation. Okay, that was with the Colin. But there is something very similar to Colin, and that's semicolon, which basically is a comma and a full stop on top of that. But when do we use it? We use semicolon instead of full stop. Pay attention. We use it instead of full stop. But when the sentences are independent, right? But when the sentences are independent, we use full stop. Wait a second. When the sentences are independent, but the meanings are closely related. So there is a very strong connection in terms of meaning. For example, some people prefer to work in the mornings, semicolon. Others do better in the evenings. As you can see, both sentences are independent. If you read them separately, they have a meaning. However, the meanings of the two sentences are closely related to each other. We're talking about what time of the day people find easiest to work. So some people prefer to work in the mornings, semicolon, instead of full stop. Others do better in the evenings. Or look at this one. That is a great idea, semicolon. We will start working on it as soon as possible. So again, as you can see, the two sentences are independent. They don't need each other, but the meanings are closely related to each other. Now, pay great attention to what I am going to say now. Can I substitute semicolon? Yeah, where'd you get? Can I substitute semicolon with full stop? Yes, I can do that. It's better to go with semicolon, but if I substitute it with a full stop, that's okay. Can I substitute this with a comma? No. These two sentences are independent, meaning that we cannot put them one after the other without a full stop or without a semicolon. So no comma, only full stop or semicolon. But what about commas? Let's talk about commas, as it is the most confusing one. First of all, think about a very simple sentence. A sentence with a subject, a verb, an object, possibly an adverb. For example, this. Electric cars are rapidly replacing petrol vehicles. Now in this sentence, the subject is electric cars, right? The verb is are replacing. And the object is petrol vehicles. There is also an adverb, rapidly. This is a simple sentence. This is a basic sentence we want to consider. Now listen closely. We never use comma to separate different parts of a simple sentence. There is no need to use a comma to separate the subject from its verb, or the object from the verb, or the adverb from the verb. So rule number 1, we never use commas in a basic sentence. Now forget about commas. Let's talk about something else. Adverbial clauses. What? What's an adverbial clause? Well, we all know that an adverb describes a verb, and it can have many different forms like adverbs of place, describing the place where an action happened, adverbs of time, talking about when an action happened, adverb of manner, how an action happened, and lots of other adverbs such as adverbs of opinion, adverbs of degree. Now, those are adverbs. What is an adverbial clause? An adverbial clause is a clause or a sentence that acts as an adverb describing a verb. So it's very simple. Instead of one word as an adverb, we have one sentence as an adverb. That sentence is an adverbial clause. Very important. An adverbial clause is a dependent clause. Now, what does that mean? It means you can never use it alone. When you read it alone, it doesn't have a meaning. It needs to go with a basic sentence. Adverbial clauses can describe time, place, manner, reason, purpose, and lots of other things in a sentence. For example, this is an adverbial clause of reason. Due to the rise of environmental awareness, or this other one is an adverbial clause of place. In our world, full of environmental issues, or this other one is an adverbial clause of time. In this era of fast technological advancements, now, as you can see in all three sentences, these sentences are incomplete, which means they are dependent. They need another simple sentence to be completed. And each one of these sentences is talking about something different. The first one talking about the reason of an action, the second one talking about where an action takes place, and the third one talking about when an action takes place. So here's a question. Why did we start talking about adverbial clauses? We were talking about punctuation, right? Here's the point. We should use adverbial clauses with basic sentences. But where? Before the basic sentence or after the basic sentence? In fact, both of them are okay. But if you use adverbial clauses before the simple sentence, you need to use a comma after the adverbial clause. For example, due to the rise of environmental awareness, electric cars are rapidly replacing petrol vehicles. So you see there is a comma in between the two sentences. Or look at this one. In our world full of environmental issues, electric cars are rapidly replacing petrol vehicles. Again, there is a comma in between. Or an adverbial clause of time. Look at this one. In this era of fast technological advancements, electric cars are rapidly replacing petrol vehicles. Again, there is a comma. So the point is, if we use adverbial clauses before a basic sentence, we need to use comma after the adverbial clause. What if we put the adverbial clause at the end of the sentence, after the sentence? Do we need a comma? No. Look at these sentences. Electric cars are rapidly replacing petrol vehicles due to the rise of environmental awareness. In this case, as you can see, we do not need a comma. Is that all? No. What if we use the adverbial clause in the middle of the sentence? How? Look at this. Electric cars, due to the rise of environmental awareness, are rapidly replacing petrol vehicles. As you can see, the adverbial clause is now in the middle of the sentence. And in this case, we use a comma before the adverbial clause and another comma after the adverbial clause. Let me give you another example. Electric cars, in this era of fast technological advancements, are rapidly replacing petrol vehicles. Again, because the adverbial clause is in the middle of the sentence, we use a comma before and a comma after. So to sum up, if we have a basic sentence, we never use comma to separate its parts. However, if there is an adverbial clause, depending on the location of the adverbial clause, we use commas. If the adverbial clause is before the main sentence, we use comma after the adverbial clause. If it is at the end of the sentence, we do not use a comma. If it is in the middle of the sentence, we use a comma before and a comma after. Alright, enough with the adverbial clauses. Another use of the comma is with non-defining relative clauses. It's getting complicated, right? Don't worry, let me explain. A relative clause is a clause that provides extra information about a noun in your sentence. We have two types of relative clauses: defining relative clauses and non-defining relative clauses. A non-defining relative clause is a clause that you can remove from a sentence, and without it, the sentence would have a meaning. For example, look at this. The house, which was built in 1994, has just been renovated. Now, the house has just been renovated. This is the complete sentence. This is the main sentence. The middle part, the part after which, is a relative clause. Now, does the sentence have a meaning without the relative clause in this case? Well, let's see. That house has just been renovated. Yes, it makes sense. Hey, look, that house has just been renovated. So, in this case, the relative clause is providing extra information, which is not necessary. So, this is a non-defining relative clause. And when we have a non-defining relative clause, we need to use a comma before and a comma after the clause. So as you can see in this example, there is a comma before which, and there is a comma after 1994. Another use of commas is when we have conjunctions in a sentence. But what are conjunctions? A conjunction is anything that connects two sentences to each other. Anything that connects two sentences is a conjunction. Now I'm going to talk about two different sets of conjunctions. The first set are these words: for and nor, but, or, yet so. Now, reading only the first letters of each one of these, you will have the word fanboys. That's a good way to remember all of these conjunctions. Whenever you have fanboys in the middle of your long sentences, you need to use a comma before the fanboys. For example, I've been meaning to tell you about this and all the other things that happened. As you can see, this is a long sentence. In the middle of this long sentence, we have and, which is one of the fanboys. So before the fanboy, we use comma. Or look at this one. We have tried everything we could, but nothing worked. Again, in this sentence, we have but. So before but, we use a comma. Another set of conjunctions is what I call wobbits. But what does wobbits stand for? W stands for when, where, while. A stands for after, B stands for before and because, I stands for if, T stands for though, which also includes although and even though, and S stands for since. These are wobbits. As I said, these are conjunctions, which means they connect two different sentences to each other. Now, a big difference between wobbits and fanboys is that we can use wobbits in the beginning of sentences. But we don't usually start a sentence with fanboys. Now here's the point. Whenever we use one of the wobbits in the beginning of a sentence, we need to use a comma in the middle of it. What does it mean? Look at this example. When she arrived, we were all tired. As you can see, the first sentence begins with when, which is one of the wobbits. And there is a comma in the middle of the sentence. Or look at this one. If you see her, tell her I'm sorry. If you see her, comma, tell her I'm sorry. We have if in the beginning, so we use a comma in the middle. Or look at this one. Although I was tired, I went out anyway. Although I was tired, comma, I went out anyway. And last but not least, we use commas when we are talking about a list of things. But remember, if the list is more than 3, the last one should not have comma, but it should have and. So it would be something like this: 1, comma, 2, comma, 3, and 4. For example, don't forget to buy apples, oranges, and bananas. And that's it. If you want to have the summary of this lesson, which was quite a long lesson with lots of information, in a single PDF file in your email address, you simply have to give me your email address. But how? Click on the link above my head, go to my website, enter your email address, and hit subscribe. I will send you the PDF file as soon as possible. Bye.